Church. Pastor Steve here with you for our Monday Minute for January the 11th of 2021. I almost said 2020, but no, we are in 2021, and we're glad to be coming to you from wherever you're watching us here today. I have a couple of announcements that I want to share with you before we get into our time of reflection here. First, I want to remind everyone of our upcoming town hall event that's going to be tomorrow night, Tuesday the 12th. That will be at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live. Join us as we share the latest on what information that we have with the pandemic and some ideas that are going to be circulating around Newburg's future here in these next couple of months. So we hope that you will join us for that time for some discussion, some answers and questions, probably a few more questions than we will have answers, but we want to make sure that everybody is informed and up to date. So we will look forward to seeing you then. This Wednesday at 6:30 begins our new adult Bible study with Reverend Gassaway. They'll be studying the book Hope for Hard Times by Dr. Magri de Vega, and that will look at how we can all have hope in God, especially in these tough situations like we've been going through now with the pandemic, and even in other tough situations within our lives. That takes place via Zoom, so you can look for the link on our webpage or here on our social media as well, or you can contact Reverend Gassaway and get that link. Our Women Connecting Through Christ is meeting on Thursdays, again at 6:30 via Zoom. They are studying the book, The Best Yes by Lisa TerKeurst. I think I'm still saying that right. Again, that will take place over Zoom, so please do contact Reverend Gassaway or the church or our social media for the link. Saturdays with Miss Karen is also back. That is on our YouTube channel every Saturday, so check those out for the kids, and I know a lot of the adults do enjoy that time with her also. As we move into our time of reflection today, a lot has happened in our nation in a very short time frame here, and a lot more might even still be happening as you're watching this right now. In this week, we've seen an unprecedented riot and attack on our nation's capital that cost the lives of at least 5 people. Many are still trying to make sense of all of this, and one way that I have seen people doing it through social media and otherwise is to disassociate from it. And I'm sure that many of you heard, once again, the conspiracy theories about attempting to deflect away from other people and who is ultimately responsible for this attack. The reason many of us want to do this is because we ourselves don't want to be aligned with them. And so when faced with the reality that these insurrectionists believe that they were following orders from someone whom politically we have supported, we cannot fathom that being correct. And so we're willing to believe anything else that would absolve us from our complicity. None of us are perfect. We know that. But we also must own up to responsibility. As people of faith who are both Democrats and Republicans, as well as independents and others somewhere in between, we have a responsibility no matter what our beliefs are about policy, because we cannot ignore that we as people of faith are to work for the common good. And that good we know comes from Jesus Christ. We cannot ignore the command that Jesus gives us to love our neighbor as ourselves, to serve the least among us, of these as Jesus called them, and to take up our cross and to follow Him. The Apostle Paul commends us first and foremost as Jesus followers to embrace the truth, not only the truth of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, but the truth that will set us free. The truth to not be conformed to the powers of this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. That can and should be what guides all of us. This time should be a time of renewal for everyone, especially for people of faith, and have it to be a time for us to take stock of who we are and how we are called to respond. I was struck by Senator Romney's speech on the floor of the Senate in the aftermath of this violence that took place later on that evening when he said, and I quote, "The objectors have claimed they are doing so on behalf of the voters. Have an audit, they say, to satisfy the many people who believe that the election was stolen. Please. No congressional-led audit will ever convince those voters, particularly when the president will continue to claim that the election was stolen. The best way we can show respect for the voters who are upset is by telling them the truth. That is the burden and the duty of leadership." End quote. If anybody can speak about how hard it is to come to grips with losing a presidential election, it is Senator Mitt Romney. But hear that again. The best way we can show respect for the voters, or anyone for that matter, is by telling them the truth. That is the burden and the duty of leadership. Over these last few months, I, as your pastor, have tried to speak truth. Truth about this pandemic, truth about our democracy here in the U.S., and truth about the duties of the people of faith. Now more than ever, we must hold fast to that truth and tell it even in the face of opposition. Those who refuse to listen, just as the rich man who went away with many possessions was still loved by Jesus, even as he was given the truth of what he needed to do to inherit the kingdom of heaven. Bishop Ken Carter of the Florida Conference just recently tweeted that he had lost several followers in this past week because he had spoken the truth. And he stated, "I'm okay with that, because he is called, as an Episcopal leader in the United Methodist Church, to tell the truth to everyone who will hear." I'm prepared to do the same, because without the truth, we as people of faith have no integrity, nor do we then have the authority to speak the word of God. Truth is not partisan, but it is biblical. Now is a time where we can face the truth of who we are as a people, with all of our faults, but with all of our strengths as well, and play to those strengths rather than falling to the least common denominator and taking out the worst of our faults. Now is the time where we can face the truth about addressing the disease of demonizing those whom we disagree with, but also hold accountable all of us who are in need of correction. Yesterday, I shared our baptismal vows and how we must live up to them in the Methodist way of moving on towards perfection. The ending part of John Wesley's questions for his preachers was to ask them if they had studied and are in agreement with our doctrines and rules. And the last instruction is this: do not mend our rules, but keep them. And this is the key phrase here: not for wrath, but for conscience sake. May our conscience guide us to live in the spirit and truth of Christ, and to share that truth and all truths for the betterment of all people, for our nation and for all nations, and for God's holy church most of all. Let us be in prayer for our nation right now and for our church as we continue to find our way towards the truth in this new year. May God bless you and have a great week. And we will see you back here next week for another edition of the Monday Minute.